Sorry about that. I had Guild Wars 2 in the background. I didn't want to hear that. So I want to take a look at the Pantheon Alpha roadmap. Let's take a look. It's only 50 minutes long. Let's watch it.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the January 13th, 2022 Pantheon Rise of the Fallen development stream. I am your host, David Roenick-Schlau, and with me today is my new co-host. Hold on a second,
Minus
I'm getting a
That's
feedback
David
here.
there.
his new co-host, Minus Tony.
There you go.
Getting some feedback. All right, anyway, as I was saying, my new co-host is with me tonight, Tony Guidi, aka Minus, looking like Ming the Merciless here. And obviously our creative director, Hdrp Perkins, is here with us as well. So just kind of moving forward, we're really excited about this year. There's a lot coming up. The team is hard at work trying to get this game out for you guys. And as far as the streams go, we have a new direction. Obviously, with Tony here as my co-host, we'd also like to sort of take things in a little bit of a different direction.
And what's
We're going to
that?
be doing more kind of shorter bites, more digestible.
I think that's a good idea because their streams in general have been very long.
So the streams sometimes we're running for, maybe 30 minutes. Chris?
Oh yeah, it's a pleasure to be here as always, especially for the kickoff stream.
I'm a big fan of Chris Perkins. I just like he seems like he gets it. Whenever I watch him talk, like it feels like I'm watching myself talk. It really does. I mean, because you could just see the gears in his head going off and like how he thinks and approaches Pantheon, and I just love it.
2022, just looking forward to taking a deeper look.
I don't know where Minus is looking. I don't know if he's got like a monitor above him. Minus, if you do, I would bring that down because it looks a little strange that you're looking up into the sky.
Where we're at here at the start of the year, and then where we're headed.
Yeah, and we have a lot we're going to talk about even in the short time today. I wanted to start off and talk about a little bit about the roadmap, and in particular the pieces that we've marked. If you've been following our newsletters, we've marked some of them as complete. That being combat awareness and asset terrain in particular. What does that mean, for the audience at hand? Does that mean there's not going to be any more work on this item? Does that mean, what does it mean as far as our goals to alpha?
Okay, so when items on the list are marked as complete, that means that they're complete according to our standards for alpha testing to begin. So it doesn't mean necessarily that they're 100% complete, never needing to be touched again. It means that according to what we have slated for alpha testing to begin, that they are complete to that point. In fact, the whole point of the alpha testing phase is to progressively ensure that everything is working properly under as many different kinds of conditions as possible, and to make sure that everything gets fully fleshed out, specifically allowing for that much larger source of feedback coming in. You have all those players and now playing the game, and based on that actual experience, there's going to be a lot of feedback coming in. So in most cases, any work that would continue beyond the point of being complete, as we're calling it complete, for example, with combat awareness, one of the completed items, continuing to add more and more dispositions, flavorful behaviors, things like that over time, that's the kind of thing you can expect to be ongoing. It's a content creation thing, and that, I mean, honestly, that's the kind of stuff we'll see developing, utilizing those systems and things like that, all the way up between now and launch and even beyond launch. I mean, the content creation is something that will be ongoing. So, but they're complete in the sense that they're at a stage where they are ready for alpha testing to begin.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that, sir. So let's jump into some of the stuff that's in progress. Specifically, I'd love to talk a little bit more about where we are with Hdrp conversion and what information you can give us where we're sort of getting into our zone's environment, to our area's environments. And I think you prepared some screenshots here. Do you want me to run those while you're talking?
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Yeah, the biggest news on the Hdrp world development front is the progress that we've made on vegetation, trees, foliage, the biome tech. Huge strides there.
I know in the last stream, I really bashed the look of their art, and I didn't really like it. And I prefaced the video like saying, it's going to sound like I'm being really negative, but what I was trying to do was say that I didn't want to say that what they've done is bad. What I wanted to say is I can see a lot of areas of improvement, and that we don't know when we see these screenshots. We have no idea if these are like low res. I don't really know. So when I see something like this, to me, this looks very low res. It's not high res. There's not a lot of detail in like the bark of the tree, and the rocks aren't very detailed and stuff like that. And I see a lot of missing shadows and obviously lighting, because the lighting and stuff probably isn't all baked into the scene. And anyway, so that's all. And I know in the last video when we were talking about some of their stuff, I think one of my comments was really funny. And if you go to my channel and you look at the last video where I was discussing Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, and I think it was here. Um, you can see that this guy was great. I mean, I went through, and because they showed all these different art assets of the characters, and I really bashed the armor because I really hate the armor. I mean, I hate the armor. I just think it's horrendous. I think it's so ugly. I think it looks terrible. I mean, and I could go into it, but I've talked about it already in this video. But I'm not a fan of the armor. I prefer armor to look more like traditional, medieval armor and stuff. But anyways, and this guy had this comment: "You are the worst Pantheon streamer I've seen. You just get down the game." I'm not sure what he's saying. You just get down the game. Obviously, he's either not an English speaker or he just doesn't speak English well. You just get down the game. For you, everything is ugly. Why do you make a video for this? And I understand. Oh, and then I understand when I see your stream library. Go to Ashes of Creation if you want shiny things. And what's funny is that he says to go to Ashes of Creation if you want shiny things. I can go to Ashes of Creation and bash the shit out of that game for graphics too. The armor in Ashes looks like shit too. So, I'm not being it's not like I'm being cruel towards this one game. I can be cruel towards all of them. The fact of the matter is, I've got an opinion, and I'm certainly gonna fire it.
There, we've got some images, to kind of show off.
But again, these images here are extremely they're very early. Like, this is something that you would put together very quickly in a level as a level designer. There's not a lot of work that really needs to be done in this kind of a level design. They've just placed some trees, you've placed some rocks, you've placed a stream, and just to show you guys that this is not it doesn't take a lot of time to kind of set something like this up. Let's see if I can find it. There's a great YouTube channel that I know I'm a member of, and I don't know, say 20 minutes or something. This guy does like speed level design videos. I'm trying to remember his name. What is his name? And I'm sure I am subscribed to his channel probably. And I wish I could remember his name. God, I hate it when I do this, when I go on a tangent and then I can't find shit. I hate it when I do this. But then it gets in the back of my mind and it's like, I have to find it. And I'm probably not going to be able to find it. Well, anyways, what I really had hoped to show you was, it's a really good level designer can put together really nice scenes. And when you think about a level design, there's more than just a small piece of the level. Obviously, there's like this here is just an area. This is just a small area game of the game, right? It's very small. It's not real big. You could take your character and walk across here and up here, and it's But something like this should be able to be created literally in like a really good level designer could mop this shit up in probably an hour, right? An hour, and if he knew what he was doing and he had it all kind of blocked out, like on paper, he probably could do it even faster than that, especially if he was comfortable with the art asset library that he's using. Like if he knew exactly what trees he wanted and kind of where he wanted to place them, a really, really good level designer who's done a lot of like parts of a zone, if they are similar to this zone, could mock this out probably in like 30 minutes. So when I see these screenshots, I'm like, this is nothing major. This is just like kind of a sample of really like where you're going with the look, but this is very little work. This is not a lot of work here, right? Now, if you're talking about they custom created these things individually, then yes, it's more work. I mean, if they actually created the models for these things. Like if they went in and created a model for this tree, and they went in and created the texture for the bark, and they went in and created some of these plants. They went in and created some of the alpha maps and the channels and the textures for the leaves and the noise maps and all the different things that go along with some of these things. If all of that was part of the creation of just this, then yes, it would take much 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 longer. But anyways,
that progress and where we're at on that front. Um, and what I want to emphasize is that our focus is still on functionality. Our focus is still on performance, not on beautification here. Even though obviously these are significant steps forward, we're still not at the point where we're ready to say, okay, you know, everything's dialed in. Behold, uh, that point is coming. But again, right now, the tech is active in the project. We're profiling performance. We're dialing in our asset streaming, the instancing tech. We're dialing those things more and more so that we can support the amount of grass, the amount of different grass types, and even down to individual blades of grass. We have to account for all of those things because they're all objects that need to be rendered. And but we're making huge strides forward. Um, and our goal ultimately is for Pantheon to be a beautiful game, but still run, play smooth as silk. So that's the stage we're in right now. But obviously, this is a massive step forward in being able to bring the continent of King's Reach all the way home in preparation for
did he
Alpha and
say?
get these areas really
Whenever he says
looking
King's Reach, I think
dialed
of
in
Game
as
of
they're meant to
Thrones,
look.
but
So
I guess that's King's
excited for
Landing.
where we're at. Excited to show off more soon.
And Chris, do you want to clarify real quick the term instancing tech? As soon as it was said, the chat lit up when they
That's
heard the word
that's a good question by Minor.
instancing. I don't think it's what they think it is. So can you just sort of explain what that means in layman's terms?
Sure. Yeah. So this is a rendering term in the sense that when you have tens or hundreds of thousands of the same object, you want to be able to render that essentially as a single pass, a single instance of that object. And so this has nothing to do with the gameplay sense of instancing. This is a term that refers to a type of rendering
Rendering pass.
um,
Just a rendering
process
pass.
that
It's just a
we
rendering
are
pass.
using to make sure we can have lots of beautiful grass, lots of beautiful foliage, and still have the game run really well.
I think you gave half the community a heart attack there. So thanks for the
Well, it's the beginning of the year. We got to wake up. So
yeah. But also, like, even looking at those screenshots from the progress where we were in pre-alpha and the people that were or have already been in game and have saw a lot of the gray boxing, you could the gradual progression that you see is outstanding internally, but I'm sure now it's cool to show outside.
totally.
Anyway, so next up, I want to talk a little bit about class development. I know Adam has kind of been hard at work on a bunch of stuff. Even recently talking on the channel about how casters no longer will be tied to critical damage. What can you tell us about classes we're familiar with, but also maybe some of the newer classes that are being set up?
Well, first off, I would say if you're interested in this topic, classes, combat, etc., the first move I'd suggest is listening to the Dev Roundtable that Adam and I did in December. We went pretty in depth there about a lot of what we've been working on as far as the combat system, class play, and whatnot. So what Adam has been working on specifically is taking the fundamental class designs that I developed and bringing a fresh perspective and pushing those designs even further, while also weaving them into this updated combat architecture that emphasizes the kind of pacing and strategy and tactics that we've been talking about from the beginning. And so what that means is you're going to see some tweaks to how certain class resources function. You're going to see some tweaks to certain ability lines, maybe the addition of new ability lines to really emphasize that class's flavor, that class's role. Um, Now, as we're farther along, we're capable of, bringing some of the more ambitious ability designs to life. So you're going to see some of those coming to bear. You're going to see some tweaks to certain aspects of our attributes and how they function, some tweaks to how health and mana regenerate, and the pacing of that. And the list goes on as we've taken a long look based on all the feedback that has come before and really the vision for what we want Pantheon's combat to be. and we've made some really fundamental steps forward. And Adam's been deeply involved in a lot of that work. And so, in summation, I'd say that the the identity, the enjoyment of Pantheon's combat is continuing to improve, and I
That's good.
fully expect it to be
That's
one of
good.
our strong suits. What I can also
That's a really that's the first time I've heard them say the enjoyment that people were going to enjoy the combat system, because the combat system, from what I've seen, is very tab target basic, basic. But for him to say that he thinks people are going to enjoy it, that's a good thing.
also add is that we're currently working to bring the Cleric online, and some initial work has begun on the Paladin as well. Getting these
Paladin.
classes ready to kind
The
of make their
Paladin.
debut, and alongside of the other improvements and evolutions of the other classes that we've seen so far.
And I think what's important to kind of note is, with the combat stuff, it's even though it's evolving, the the sort of geneticists of it all, the core values of what we originally set out to kind of do, are still there.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. This is absolutely a we use the word evolution a lot in terms of Pantheon's development, what its aims are. We're not looking at like you know we're looking at taking fundamental things and evolving them forward to make them better, deeper, more impactful. So absolutely, like the the fundamental design of these classes has not changed. Their role hasn't changed. Their arsenal largely has stayed the same, except for, again, some of those tweaks and additions and places that we've identified to push them even further and deeper into that class fantasy. So yeah, absolutely.
Well, it's already been mentioned. I don't know if you saw, David, in the chat, but the next one here is one that a lot of people have wanted more information on. We know it's one of our biggest, developmental pieces we've all been sort of excited about, and that is the networking, right? So we've talked a lot about it. It's a very important topic for both, us, the community as well. And for us to go over some of the more technical stuff we're able to show here would be a little silly because we have Kyle on our team. So what we have is actually a little presentation here from Kyle to talk about the network stack. And then Chris, after we're done
I'm
showing
really
this,
interested to see this.
On to where we're at with it, and what you've seen so far, just to give people an update on where we are in the progress of that. So guys, it's about an 8-minute video. It's pretty cool. I hope you guys enjoy it. Kyle put a lot of love into it, but I'm gonna go ahead and switch that on, and I'm gonna mute us so you don't have to worry about us interrupting anything fun. So here we go. This is Kyle talking about the networking stack.
Hey guys, I'm gonna give a little update.
This ought to be really interesting, actually.
And show off a little demo.
And it looks like what he's doing is, it looks like each one of these is a separate client maybe that he's starting up. I don't know if he's trying to simulate multiple people connecting to the game server. Let's take a look.
Of our network library, Vinyl.
Take a look.
Let me get a server going.
So he's running the server.
Clients.
And now he's got, now he's starting at multiple clients.
Historically, our library has been focused on the usability side of Unity and networking. So improving the developer experience.
Unity's networking has never been its strong suit. That's putting it mildly. It's interesting to see the stuff he has running down here in his taskbar. I mean, you've got this Vinyl, which I guess maybe that's the name of their client. Interesting. Fine, I didn't know that. And then you've got OBS, which he's using to stream. But yeah, you can see he's got a lot of Vinyl things running. Vinyl consoles, Vinyl clients, and I'm assuming the server is also another Vinyl window. So I guess all of the server technologies is they've called Vinyl.
And making it easy to write a network message or a network update, which means that our library focuses on code generation and automatic serialization and deserialization. So turning
JetBrains Writer is either an IDE or some sort of a programming package. Let's see, JetBrains Writer. It's an IDE. That's what I figured. So, and it's a .NET IDE. It's interesting that they're using JetBrains as opposed to using Visual Studio, because Visual Studio is completely free. I don't know why he's using that versus, but here's Writer versus Visual Studio. So, It does say that it has visualization, compare, revert, and changes. It's got some other additional features. I don't know if it's free or not. I mean, the Visual Studio, a lot of it's free. But anyways, it's interesting that the IDE he's using for development for writing code is JetBrains.
Message into bytes and sending those bytes over the network, and then receiving those bytes on the other side, and then turning those bytes back into a representation of the message. And that's been great. That the first version of the library worked very well. It was fairly performant, but it was built sort of. The core was built outside of Unity in terms of context. It didn't depend on Unity. None of the features utilized Unity's internals, especially their newer stuff like the job system and burst compiler, to optimize the core part of the library. The benefit was we could run part of the library outside of Unity, but for our use case, that wasn't very useful. We've recently been converting as much as we can, really, to Unity's job system and burst compiler, because that's really the best way to write performant code in Unity. So to make the most expensive part of an MMO, being the networking side, to make that performant, we want to jobify and burst compile it if possible. Now with the initial version of the library, we could actually use Unity's job system, but it wouldn't be a very big win over our own threading that we had. We already had several serialization threads.
You can see the clients that they're running are taking up very little memory. 100 meg for clients is absolutely tiny.
A network IO thread, and lockless ways of communicating with them with queues. So it was decently performant, but what we couldn't do was run Unity's burst compiler over a majority of our code, because a majority of our transport library was written in raw C, which Unity isn't capable of compiling. We could run all of that code in the job system, but we wouldn't get a vast majority of the automatic optimizations that come from Unity's burst compiler. So the solution there is to write our own transport layer and then burst compile it, which is what we've done in version 2 of the library, which nets us some fairly significant CPU gains. You can see, obviously, this is a pretty simple setup. Doesn't even register.
I'm not sure what he's saying by transport layer. If he's saying that their code in C++ is being like on the fly, like converted in any way to code that the Unity job engine can consume. I mean, a transport layer doesn't usually mean a faster performance. It usually means slower performance, because you're somehow transporting the code from one platform to another. So not sure what he really means by transport system, and I'm not sure how that could in any way make it more performant.
On my machine. Just two users doing area of interest with each other. If I get far away, he fully unloads. If I get close, he reloads. Simple. Works well. But the wins really come when we crank up the number of objects, because area of interest and hooking that into the network message system can become a fairly big bottleneck when you're dealing with a video game and transitioning between being on one thread of the game and wanting to send a message on another thread, which would be your network thread. So let's create 10,000. Give that a sec. So the server just spawned a bunch of network active objects and added them to the interest management system. And we can walk around. You can see as I move around on this screen, the server.
But notice it's only rendering the objects that are within a certain range of his character controller. So he may have spawned 10,000, but the client here is only rendering like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's only rendering like 20 at a time. So it spawned 10,000, across however large the scene is. So of course it's going to perform well because you're only seeing a few objects.
Serves up creation packets and destruction packets, and actually creates these objects. These don't exist on the client until you get near them.
Oh, so he's okay. So it's dynamic. It's dynamically creating them as you move around. Okay, well that's cool.
Same for this guy. So if I up the visibility, say like.
So that's going to create the however many he's.
See, we're actually loading quite a bit of stuff.
So the visibility should just be the the radius around the controller, of how far out it goes that he's actually seeing. The draw distance, basically.
Same idea still applies. I can move this guy. And the visibility ring is much larger now.
Yeah, it's much larger. You can see there's a difference now that a guy is moving a lot slower than he was. Like,
Added them to the
notice-
interest management system.
Actually, it's not moving that
We
much
can
slower.
walk around. You can see as I move around. So you can see our network. You can almost get sweating yet. Until you, same idea still applies. I can move this guy.
It's not moving quite
The
as fast.
visibility ring is much larger now. You can
Also, what's interesting though, and not necessarily maybe a good thing, is if you look at Task Manager, the power usage of one of his clients is very high. So, which isn't a big deal, but like, looks like console app you making your C# class. Hey, what's up, Jackrabbit? Yeah, I mean it is basically it is a console app. I mean, that's all a client is, really. I mean, it's a window, right? It's an application that runs. Like when we're running a video game, all it really is a console app. It's just an application that runs on your machine and in a window. And then we usually have the window in kind of a maximized mode, but it really is just an application. A console app is basically a window, just basically an exe, right? The difference with a console app is it's usually always running in the typical Microsoft console window, whereas an application is a compiled exe, which has all kinds of code and parameters where you're specifying what's the size of the window. Like in this particular instance, he actually is using a window because you've got the open, close, and minimize. Here you wouldn't see that in a really and which you would see in, I guess, the game a lot of times if they do have a windowed mode. But anyways, yeah, I mean, to me, like when I see, I mean, he's running this computer he's running on. Either it's not a very fast computer, but I mean, it's surprising that the power usage is so high. But I mean, he does have a lot of stuff being drawn here, and of course, in a real live scenario, he probably wouldn't have a draw distance being this far, and he probably wouldn't have this many objects. But if you think of a PvP battle where there's like hundreds of players, maybe, or 30 players fighting 30 players, and particle effects of all their spells and stuff, you can kind of get into a scenario where it may mimic this, but this looks decent,
Even though we're doing visibility calculations,
I mean, it is good that the CPU is very is not taking up hardly any CPU
on a fair number of objects.
I'm surprised
server
the
isn't
power
really
usage.
sweating yet.
I'm surprised the power usage is so high though on that client.
It's because this is all multi-threaded and able to efficiently schedule itself alongside Unity's own jobs that it schedules. So say we're using multi-threaded rendering in these setups. So Unity is scheduling jobs to do that rendering, and we can schedule our network IO right alongside those jobs so they happen concurrently. So in some cases, and low use of the network, you can almost get free network IO.
I'm not really sure what
Depends
he
on
means
how
by
much other
that.
stuff is happening on the job queue.
Yeah, I mean, all he's saying is it's just multi-threading. We're having multiple threads, and of course, most computers nowadays are going to have support. Like my computer here, if I go to performance and I go to the resource manager here, and I open this guy up and I look at the CPU, you can see that I've got, I've got how many cores here? Like 32 or 16. I can't remember. 16, 1, 2, 3. Well, here, CPU ID 1, 2. So I've got 16. Cores. So theoretically, we could be running 16 different individual threads on each of these CPUs, and it should run fairly well. And as computers get better and better, that obviously that stuff becomes more of a benefit. But you can easily code such that we're doing that. Like at work, we're writing some code just this week. One of the developers on my team is writing some code that's doing multi-threading. It's a console application. And it's supporting large amounts of data, on separate threads, just for optimization purposes. Yeah. But I mean, like I said, this looks pretty good so far. I like I said, it's very high on the power usage, which, and I don't know, I don't know much about what dictates how much power a process the exe is really going to use. It's interesting that the power usage is so high, and yet the CPU is so low. And I've not written a lot of networking type applications, so I'm not sure why, what dictates that.
So let's stress this out.
You've got an i7. I've got an i9 9900. Yeah, I've got an i9. Yeah, i7 9700 is a good CPU too.
A bit more. Let's spawn some headless clients. So these are actual users that are just simulating inputs. So you can see our network IO has skyrocketed quite a bit. In fact, let's pull up.
Not sure what he's doing. He's simulating. Is he simulating other people connected?
Is. So we're hitting about 10 megabits.
I guess because you see all these client IDXEs, there's so many of them. I guess each of these are these individual ones he started. So
locally between all of the instances here. So this is our server instance. Peaked up a little bit of CPU. Well, it's dropping, I guess.
Yeah, that's nothing.
But if we look at
here's the
Unity,
clients.
you can see a ton of clients have fired up. They're just running in a headless form, so they don't have a renderer.
Yeah,
they're a lot more efficient for a single computer to run. But we can keep kicking them up.
So that's what he meant as headless. He meant that they didn't open up like a window. He's not running them as a window. They're just a process that's running in the background that's simulating another person connected to the actual server. So what he's doing is he's got code in here. You can see here where it's saying client FPS 60. So this is, I think, the simulated. And here you say batch mode, no graphics. So this is the one that are the simulated ones here because he's starting up a client with these options. And you can say no graphics, no console. That's why it's probably has, you're not going to see a window or anything like that. It's just basically another thread that's being opened that's simulating another person that's connected to and it is an actual connection. And that's why he went to the Unity editor and he expanded it down. You actually have all these individual client connections. So it's another interesting way to test the performance.
They're just walking around choosing.
I mean, I see. I've never written a client, a video game like this that that has client connections. So that's why I love seeing this kind of stuff. I'm a programmer, so it's cool stuff to me.
And again, this is raw packet updates, so there's no smoothing being applied onto any of these player updates here. It's just sending a position and applying the position as it gets received. So you can see it's fairly stable in terms of the IO queue of the network library.
I don't know what he means by the IOQ.
So let's.
I'm not sure what he's meaning by fairly stable.
Traffic quite a bit here. So let's set the tick rate of the server all the way up to 128. So we're receiving a lot more packets per second now. Actually, let's just unlock it.
What was the tick rate?
Receiving over a megabit in IO per client, right? And we've got about 100 clients connected.
So when he unlocked it, I guess what he was saying is, I guess his server has the ability to set how much information it receives from the client at once per tick. So it's like every game cycle is like a tick. Like every time we check, like when you play an MMO, what happens in an MMO is the server every so often, it probably like, I don't know if it's every second or every half a second or every millisecond, whatever. It's going to check your position and it's going to check all the positions of all the objects around you. And those objects could be trees, those objects could be other players, they could be enemy monsters. And so it's going to check where are you from your last position? Where is everything else that's in the draw distance? We talked earlier in this video how he was showing the circle of the objects that are drawn close to his character. So there's basically think of it as like a big circle, right? So you go in here. If I have, oh God, I never use paint. Here we go. So you think of it as this is the circle. You got your character right here. And so the server is going to say it's only going to, your viewing radius of objects is this. So if you go from here and then you move your character to here, and maybe there was an enemy here and an enemy here and an enemy here, and there were trees, all these little dots are like trees. If you move here, where did these guys go? Maybe they moved, to here, and to here, and to here. And so the server is going to say, okay, every so often, I'm going to check the position of this object, this object, this object, this object, this object. I'm going to check the position of you. I mean, it's not going to check the position of the trees so much because it knows where those are. But because you moved from here to here, now the circle moves. So now it's got to check all of the new objects that exist here that before we weren't looking at. So now it's got to go and say, oh, we've got all these objects here. I've got to draw this tree, I've got to draw this tree, draw a tree. And then we got to call these objects. And call means we're going to get rid of objects that are no longer inside of your view range. So now we're going to get rid of all this stuff. We're going to delete all this. And we're going to draw all these things. And then we're going to move. We're going to draw, we're going to check where these guys are. Now we got to draw these. And all that stuff is being handled by the networking stack and the server and the server itself. And then all that information, like you've got the server, you've got the client. So now all that information has to go back and forth. The server is going to figure out all this stuff, and it's going to send that information down to the client, and the client's going to have to update and redraw everything. And and then there's constant communication from the client going back to the server, just communicating, what you're doing, what are you doing? But all of this, like where Amazon's New World really screwed up is that Amazon's New World broke the primary rule of a online application, right? Or of a client server application. The biggest rule when you're developing a client server application, the client is being you guys, the user, and the server, of course, is the game server. But the biggest rule is never trust the client, okay? Never trust the client. So every time information is being sent from the client, you have to inspect the data, you have to verify the data, you have to make sure it's valid. You have to say, okay, this session, which is this game mode, this is like, let's say this is session X1. So I'm Julian, right? I'm Julian, and I started World of Warcraft, and I get a session ID of X1. And every time I communicate to the server saying, oh, I'm doing something, it's going to say, does the session ID, and this is usually going to be some sort of an encrypted, hashtag or something, does that ID of information that's coming up match what I know your session was when you started? And it's going to keep checking that and verifying. And it's not going to trust any information that belongs to your communication, your connection, unless the IDs match. And then there's all kinds of other things too. It's going to validate the type of information that's being sent. But Amazon screwed this all up, and they actually had in Amazon, they had like their chat window was built in HTML, so people could go in here and literally type in like HTML stuff, like like Ahrefs, which were creating links, which were going out to other places. And I mean, Amazon really shit the bed on their client server architecture because they had all kinds of holes that allowed the client to send information that was not being validated by the server. The server has to validate all information and make sure it's valid before it does anything with it.
Or make that. There. Now we've got 100 clients connected.
You said you missed the part where I'm consistently teleporting back 5 feet due to a bad ping.
150 megabits a second.
Yeah, WoW does
We're
a great
still
job of
fairly
validating
stable
the
in
data.
terms of the IO queue.
The thing with World of Warcraft, and I was talking about it yesterday, is WoW has a custom game engine that they created, but it's the smoothest engine. Out of all the MMOs I've ever played, and I've played a lot of MMOs, WoW's engine runs very smoothly. Like the characters walking around the world, the drawing of the stuff as you move around, it just runs so well. And someone said earlier today, well, they should make World of Warcraft 2 and they should use Unreal Engine 5. And I said, no, I wouldn't do that because they already created their own engine that is really good. I mean, it's really good. What they need to do is just keep upgrading their engine, create different versions of the engine that can handle that are just better, that are technically better, that use more newer coding concepts, because I'm a programmer, so I know that the software we might write in a certain language, we might write with certain techniques, and as computers get faster and as software languages improve, you always have to keep updating. Well, Blizzard has to do the same thing. When they first created the World of Warcraft client, it was only meant to the server. It was only meant to handle about 3,000 connections, and the game was designed for that. The game was designed for 3,000 people to be running around in the world. And then as people's computers got faster and faster, as servers where they host their servers, the servers they're using got faster and faster, that didn't really apply anymore. And you can see that in the private server community, as private servers like Nostalrius and Elysium and these different ones and Lights Hope, we're running clients, we're running servers that were allowing 8, 9, 10,000 connections to one server, and the server still was running really well. That's because the technology is so much better. And also people's internet connections are so much faster. And so you have to take that in mind. And that's why Blizzard, to me, has screwed up royally in that they've continued to try to run with a game. They've updated the engine. They've done some major updates to the WoW engine over the years. Cataclysm was the first big update. They changed the water engine. They changed a lot of different things. And then they came out with, you can see the engine updates in WoW based on how they changed the character models, like how a lot of the character models went from these character models, and all of a sudden now they have all these different character models. Those kind of coincide, I think, partially with some of the engine updates, but the current engine, like you see with the current retail, is a completely different engine than the one that runs vanilla. And when you play classic World of Warcraft and classic like Season of Mastery and stuff, you're running on a much newer game engine than what they used originally, and it runs great. That's why Season of Mastery runs really, really, really well. But retail doesn't run as well because it's just loading so much more data. But I do think if they came out with World of Warcraft 2 and they basically just could take their in-house game engine and just just keep updating it and customizing it and making it better, making it, keep just modernizing it. And there's ways you could do that. They don't need to go and use Unreal Engine 5 or anything like that. I mean, you could if you wanted to, but it would just be such a departure from really the stylistic look of your game. I'm not sure that would be the best idea. You're a C# writer? You see, but I'd say Unreal Engine 5, I feel, is sort of the fast food. Well, I love Unreal Engine 5. I mean, I love Unreal Engine 5, and the reason, and the one of the things that I really like about Unreal Engine 5 is that Epic Games, because of Fortnite, they have so much positive cash flow that if you are going to make a video game and you want to go with an engine, going with that with Unreal is great because you're going with a company that's going to continually and very quickly make updates to their engine. Their engine is always going to be getting better because they have so many people using it. They have so much money they're making. So you don't have to worry about that. And also Epic they care about the developers. I don't care what anybody tells you. They do. Epic cares about their developers that work on their games. And because of what they did with Fortnite, and like if you look at, and I wish I had a good video on this, and I wish I like. Do we have anything?
People are inner kid, more complicated and compelling.
Like real, so we can do this in a much bigger area. It has to be.
So I've never watched this video here, but this would probably be an interesting video to watch. But one of the reasons that Fortnite was developed, Fortnite was an in-house project that Epic Games was working on, and one of the biggest reasons they were working on Fortnite is they wanted to improve the Unreal Engine. They wanted to improve its ability to add stuff like picking up different types of weapons on the ground, like destroying environments, building stuff. All these different types of things. The Unreal Engine didn't really do these things very well before. So Fortnite is one of the biggest reasons why the Unreal Engine is so much better now for games that are like, first person. It was always good for first person shooters, but it's even better now for like MMOs and stuff because they've built stuff around more like HUDs and interfaces and stuff that allows the player to interact with the environment and to quickly swap gear in and out. Those things weren't as prevalent before. So Fortnite was a big 8-year internal project that turned out to be amazing for them, and so I mean, I think Unreal Engine is a great engine, but when you have an engine like Blizzard does with World of Warcraft, and it's a really good engine, it runs really well. They've done a great job with their security. I think they have. I mean, people can disagree with me, but I wouldn't like if I was going to go make if I was going to make World of Warcraft 2, I would just continue with the engine they have, but I would just update. If you guys don't know, there was the WoW leak that came out yesterday, I think, and in the leak, this is just a WoW leak for 10.0, the next expansion. But if the leak is true, one of the things the leak says is that they are going to be updating a lot of the graphics of the world. They're going to be updating Goldshire in different areas and really trying to modernize some of the graphics, which is, I hope it's true, because that would be great. But I do think they'd be better served just to make a World of Warcraft 2.
Our server barely breaking a sweat still. This is just thanks to efficient job scheduling and the burst compiler. This would have been capable, or the previous iterations of the library would have been capable of doing this, just at significantly higher CPU and memory usage, which means that we get less scaling on our servers, and we have to spend more money to host the same number of people in zones. So
yeah,
the more that we can iterate on this to improve performance, the less money that we can shell out each month to run our servers, or the more servers that we can run for the same amount of money.
Which I don't think is a big concern, because I mean, honestly, Pantheon, I don't think will have. I mean, it's a pretty niche game. I don't think it's going to have like. I'd be surprised if Pantheon ever had more than 100,000. Well, no, I wouldn't be surprised. If Pantheon can improve the artwork and a lot and improve the combat, if they can improve that a lot over the next year, and they have the ability to do it, I think if they can improve the art and the character models and improve the character combat animations and improve the combat system, which Chris already said in this stream here that they have been working on the combat and that people are really starting to like it internally, of course. But if they can improve on all those things, I think if the game launches and they have a good beta test, like closed beta test, or a good alpha test, and it gains traction, I do think it would garner probably anywhere from 100 to 300,000 people in some of on launch. I think it would be 100,000 to 300,000 if it's pretty good because of the niche aspect of the game. But if it plays really good, like in the alpha, it could be more. I mean, it could gain steam and actually take off. I don't think we'd ever see more than like what New World, because New World was around for a long time, and New World had Amazon behind it. New World had a ton of advertisement. They spent a ton of money on advertising that game, and New World only had at its peak maybe 600,000 or 700,000 people playing at once. So, with Pantheon, no way Pantheon's going to have that kind of advertisement. And there's still a lot of people out there that don't even know what Pantheon Rise of the Fallen is. So I don't think we'll ever see. I mean, we could, but I'm just saying I don't think we're going to see on the release of Pantheon that kind of a player base. But the thing is, if Pantheon does release and it turns out to be a really fun MMO, word of mouth will spread. And there's a lot of gamers out there. There's a lot of people like Asmongold and Bellular Gaming and people that they'll hear about it. People say, hey, you got to check this game out, and they already know about the game now. But if it becomes really popular, once those big streamers start playing it, if they play it and like it, then people will come in droves. And as we saw when Asmongold went to Final Fantasy and started doing videos on Final Fantasy, the population just absolutely skyrocketed. I think it was by like 300,000 players within just a few weeks. So yeah, I mean that could really happen. This looks pretty good. I mean, I think what he's showing us here looks pretty good. My thing is Unity's never been known for having a very good networking stack, and a lot of the networking stuff is they've been trying to rewrite. And I don't know if this networking stuff he's demoing here, like this job system that he's talking about, and what was the other word? I can't remember what he said. If this is part of their newer network stack or not, I don't know. So I'll have to look that up.
So that kind of sums it up. That's where we're at now. The library has basically reached parity with version 1, the new version. Actually, in some areas, it's exceeded it. And we're just about ready to start integration into Pantheon proper. So you'll see some updates on that fairly soon.
Now, when he says integration into Pantheon proper, what I believe he probably means is that the development is on a couple different branches of code. So when you develop for software, you have a system that you store your code in, like a code management system. Whatever you want to use, whether it's there's so many different ones out there, but they're storing their code, and there's different versions of the code. But you can create a branch where you can say this branch of the code is just the networking code, and this branch of code might be what's called Pantheon proper, which would just be all the other code that's for running the game. And so right now they probably have like their old networking stack that they'd already created that he talked about at the beginning of this little video. That's currently in the Pantheon proper, which is the core set of code that all the game runs on. And then they've got this new branch that they're working off on another area that's the new networking stack. And now that they've got it kind of to the point where it's just as good as the old one, and well, even better, he said. Now they're going to they're just about getting to the point where they're ready to merge that new code back in to the main Pantheon proper code base, which then it'll start using the new networking stack code that they've done. So that's good. That means they're getting to a point where they're ready to move forward with that. So that's good.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of SVN software.
Right, awesome. So
what software they're using.
I think, Chris, it's fair to say that we would not have been able to, number one, explain that nearly as well as Kyle, but also to put those visuals in so that we can also understand it. So the networking project has just been absolutely huge. You've talked about it on multiple occasions, Chris, what it means to not just like certain.
Yeah, I actually talked to Minus. I talked to Minus a couple weeks ago. And he told me that, yeah, they're doing a lot of work on the networking stack, and that there's some information will be coming out pretty soon, and this is probably the information that he was talking about.
Things we're working on, but the overall health testing, what it's going to be like to open the gates for players and needing this tech. So I was curious if you wanted to add anything else on about what that progress is looking like. I think a long time ago you said it's probably a heads down, couple month project. It looks like Kyle's really gotten a good jump on it. So I'm just curious where we're at and what you can add on to what Kyle showed there.
Well, first of all, I have to acknowledge the the blue bean being a bard in lambent armor. Absolutely hilarious. I enjoyed the presentation as much as I enjoyed the commentary. Yeah, it's a fantastic demonstration. It's one of a couple that Kyle's put together to really visualize what it is that um, he's doing. And I mean, it's no secret that the networking and the quality of your networking is one of the most fundamental pieces
Yeah,
of
it is.
a successful experience on an online game.
Yeah, it
Whether you're
is.
talking about a first-person shooter or
And that's why I was talking. That's why I really was talking about, the World of Warcraft's networking stack, or their networking is so good. And also, if you've ever played Unreal Engine or Unreal Tournament, the original Unreal Tournament was the same way. When you think about FPS games, right? Like when you think about FPS games, like this is the original Unreal Tournament. Well, the Unreal Tournament 1999 Game of the Year edition, whatever. So, but the cool thing about the Unreal Tournament game is that it was so smooth. I mean, I've got this set to where the game speed in the game is quite a bit faster than normal. That's why you see me moving very quickly, but it's very smooth. Like, you know, I'm trying to just work on my aim here, maybe do some headshots, but what was so great about Unreal Tournament was that the engine itself ran very smoothly, and it was this is way back in the day. Like this is 1999 when this game came out, right? And so back then, not a lot of games had that. Not a lot of games had like an online presence with an engine that the networking was so good. And I think one of the things people always remember about playing Unreal Tournament, at least the people like me who were like diehard players, was just how smooth the game engine was. And I think World of Warcraft has that same type of feeling, where it's just got a really smooth game engine, and it's like what Joppa was saying right here, is it's really, really a basic foundational thing that you have to have. You've got to have a good networking stack. It's got to be smooth. We all know that if you're playing an MMO, if there's any kind of lag or choppiness, that you're not even going to want to play it. If you go in there and the games have suffered from this. I mean, even Star Wars: The Old Republic, when it first launched, had some issues with kind of like the pings and the lag, and they lost a lot of subscribers in the first couple of weeks because of that. And it's very important to get that stuff, working and nailed down correctly.
for an MMORPG, latency and the responsiveness, the performance, the stability of your networking layer is vital. And it's really been kind of the last big mountain that we have needed to climb. And we've had our sights set on it for a while because Kyle, as incredible of a software engineer, programmer as he is, he comes kind of packed with this passion for networking. And I was just telling uh, Tony and David while we were watching that, how much Kyle has genuinely enjoyed, like has fun working on this stuff. It's a passion of his, and so it's just a huge win for Pantheon
Yeah.
all around.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Sounds
I
like
mean,
it.
simply what this means is that you're looking at the fundamental components of what's going to allow us to scale up to a true, full scale MMORPG experience, to support the kind of player population that we want to support the other kind of network dependent activities that we want to support in the game, and to do it on a level that would be expected in the modern market. um, it's huge. It's absolutely huge. I think you know me talking about it is probably as beneficial as a good portion of people watching that. I think what's going to be best is to actually, be able to eventually see this in action and see it soon. Progress is ongoing. Networking stack, we have officially begun work on the networking stack as is being demonstrated here, and much more that than what was demonstrated here. And so keep an ear out over the coming months as that process continues, and we will be sure to absolutely let you know as soon as it's done.
It sounds like to me that they're still a ways away from alpha. We've all wanted alpha, so we can get in there and play. I mean, I've paid $500 into this game, and when the alpha comes out, I'll be able to play the alpha, right, along with a lot of other people. I think they said there's about 8,000 people who are at that pledge level that are waiting to play the alpha. So they've had about 8,000 people that have pledged, whatever. I mean, the initial pledge way back. I mean, if you were lucky enough, I love how these games work. If you were lucky enough 3 years ago to pledge like maybe $100, you probably had access to alpha. But then as the game, gets closer and closer to launch, they start raising those pledges up, and then and all of the games do this. It's just a way for them to make more money to help them develop the game, and I don't have a problem with that. But whereas a lot of people waiting for the alpha, and I just looking at this, it seems like to me there's still a good, I would say at least minimum 4 months away. 4 months at least. I mean, if I really want to be honest with myself, I would say more like 5 to 6 months before we see the alpha. Um, I was hoping that it wasn't that far away, but as I've seen this stream and some of the other streams in the past couple weeks, that's kind of what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that we're going to see an alpha maybe in maybe like June or something. Maybe June. Which would be, as soon as we can get it, it'll be great.
Is Kyle a replicant? Like,
Check it out all night.
And I'm just
And it's not
Tony.
I'm gonna
we
skip
haven't
to
really touched-
skip through this a little bit because I don't want to. Yeah, patience is a virtue. Yeah, no, I definitely, if you really like MMOs, Jack, and Pantheon is going to be, it's one of those games that I think has a real chance. It's one of the few games coming that has a real chance to be a really good MMO, because these guys have such a passion for what they're trying to do, and they're staying true to their goal, which is to create a very community-based MMO that's challenging and difficult. You won't be able to just you won't be able to run through the content as a single player. You're going to be heavily relying upon other people that play the game to group up with, to do dungeons, to even do just stuff in the world. You can't just do stuff solo. I mean, the whole point of this game is to bring back the community aspect of MMOs, to bring back the challenge, which is what a lot of us old school gamers want. We want a challenging experience from level 1 all the way to max level. We don't want any of this crazy bullshit, fly through the leveling experience in a day just so you can get to end game. That's not what we want. We want the leveling experience to be months and months, and we want it to be challenging and fun, and that's what they're shooting for, and so I think it has a great chance, I think. But let's look at the material stuff they're going to talk about and see what they're going to discuss with the
touched
materials.
on in a while, and that's crafting and gathering. Recently Philip and Jared have kind of worked together to create some materials, for all the different resources we have on Terminus. We talk about metals with guidance from Justin and Neff. Well, we're not going to spoil them, but Chris, I'd love to hear you talk about the importance of the material library and how that's coming along, and really what it means for Terminus. And we're going to run some clips, I think, right?
Yeah, I'll run the
Tony?
clips while you guys are talking. Yep.
Wait, which way is he, Tony?
Yeah, this is a big step forward for our overall goals, for itemization, and it's not just with the crafting.
So these are just materials, and a lot of these materials here look like for weapons and gear. The corrosion rust. If you saw some of the stream that we showed a couple weeks ago, where they were showing like some of their weapons, like maces and stuff, they were showing us maces that look like kind of like very stainless steel. They showed us some maces that looked like they were bronze. They showed us maces that were bronze but were corroded, like specifically like this one here, like this corrosion raw. You can see. So I'm assuming that most of these textures here look like weapon textures. Specifically these top, these all look like weapon textures. So
Sphere, it's in the way it informs the entire host of materials that exist within Terminus. And what we're showcasing now,
yeah, I don't play
tonight or
ARPGs.
today, are the metals specifically, but you can expect this same treatment to be done for all materials of all various types of things that exist in the world. We're purposely hiding the names of what these things are, just to preserve the mystery and the in-game discovery.
Well, some of these are definitely
Um,
weapon textures.
But you can see here, Jared has done these depictions and these renders of the different types of metal. And within these,
Yeah, like this is like this one here on the right is like a rusty. I don't know if it's a rusty bronze. This one on the left, I'm not really sure why it's got red under it, but I guess that's maybe rust inside the grooves. But this one on the far left, this one on the far right could be weapon textures. The one in the middle, I don't think is. But
you can see kind of the raw version.
these are definitely, this one on the right here is definitely a bronze with the green, of course, is the corrosion that you see. So this is definitely a metal tech. Oh, these are both weapon
polished
textures.
version and the
Or maybe like it could be a plate mail armor texture on the left.
rusted version.
Both of them could be.
And then what Philip has done is taken that into the 3D space using Substance Painter to create the actual materials that will be.
This one on the right here looks really good. This is very realistic. As far as like just a piece of iron that's really corroded. This is like a very heavily corroded iron or steel.
Whether it be armor, weapons, you know.
I mean, he pretty much gave it away, whether it be armor or weapons. Like I said, most of these look to me to be armor weapon textures.
Objects in the game world, you know, metal braces, iron.
And the population of them.
With open development, you know, how much you talk about, how much you share, because you end up.
I don't really want to go through. I don't really want to watch the
like,
pet systems. I don't really care much about the
kind
pet
of
systems right
just-
now. That's something to me that's like icing on the cake. Like we'll look at the pet systems later. NPC placement and logic. I don't really care about that right now. I mean, I'll watch this later. But I do want to see what they say about the animations because the animations right now they really need to improve the character animations, all of them. I mean, I'm talking about walking, jumping, fighting. All the animations need to be, in my opinion, reworked.
Are we counting the like 10 minutes we missed at the beginning with the technical difficulties?
That's true.
Our...
That's true.
Okay,
we're on time. So a couple more things for you, Chris. You know, at one point, the community concern, I think if you took a temperature of things that people were worried about or concerned about, last year, beginning of the year, I think we heard a lot about terrain, right? Like getting the zones ready.
Yeah.
And I think that in the last few months, we've shown that's really not a concern, at least internally at all anymore. We're flying through that. I mean, you guys have seen the progress from Gray Box to the shots we showed today. So I think now it's, you know how it is. It's always a moving target. So, okay, this is good now. What's the next thing? And I think we've heard a lot of people talking about animations, both with needing
combat
and also
animations.
just the improvement of animations or additional animations. So I wanted to ask you a couple things if you could talk about. One, what does it look like on team right now? Do we feel confident about our on team? And you've mentioned outsourcing quite a bit. So what are we looking at with that? And how do we prepare to outsource and what's going on with that?
So, okay.
Questions. You're getting the tough ones tonight, Japa.
Oh, it's good. It's good. The current and long-standing goal with animations has been that I want to make sure that everything we need to animate has a starting point in place. That every action, every activity, everything that needs an animation associated with it, that is in place. So in other words, coverage.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, at this stage, we're concerned not with uber levels of polish. More concerned that every individual action that needs an animation has one. And there's several reasons for this. One of which is making sure that we have the fullest picture in view to determine, you know, how we want to handle several secondary aspects of animation, things like transitional animations, procedural animations, fidgets, idle breaks, animation breaks, syncing with visual effects, sound effects, things like that. Having a broader, more complete.
That's really interesting that you mentioned the syncing with the audio and the Vex. That's something I hadn't really thought about too much. But like when you're making your own MMO, I mean, there is syncing. Like when you're swinging your weapon, obviously the weapon when it makes contact with somebody has to make a sound. So, you know, there's a lot of audio stuff that I hadn't really considered too much when I talk about reworking animations, because if they change the animations and they've already created the sound effects, you have to be really careful about the keyframes of those animations such that, you know, where you're making contact with your weapon, the time index doesn't really change too much. So if the animation was 20 seconds long and at 18.5 seconds, the weapon should be colliding with something, or maybe within a window of, the swing arc of the weapon is like from like maybe 17.5 to 19 seconds or something. And somewhere in there, you're probably going to make contact, and so they're probably going to play the sound effect somewhere in there. So if you rework the animation and then the actual arc of where you think the weapon might make contact isn't in that window anymore, maybe it's shifted a little bit. It could look like the sound effect of you colliding with something. It occurs after the weapon stops swinging. So I hadn't really thought about that too much, but that's actually a really good point.
Scope and arsenal of animations across the gamut in Vue allows us to so much better, see what is needed. And basically, we don't want any surprises.
Yeah.
But it's also simply that at this stage of development, being still in pre-alpha, having unique animations to correspond to what you're doing in game, I weigh that more heavily than having less animations that are more polished at this stage. All of that being said, animation quality is absolutely key to creating a quality game experience, something that we enjoy playing and actually get immersed in, where combat and player interactions with the world, the entire social framework of the game, the down to the emote level and things like that for role playing or just for general interacting with other players, it's key that the animations hit the mark. And we do have a ways to go on achieving that overall polish level that we're aiming for.
Yeah, I said we do have a ways to go. I think it's pretty obvious they got quite a ways to go yet. But the fact that they know that is good.
But it's probably important to reiterate that we're committed to achieving that level of polish as development continues, but also really emphasizing where we are right now and how quantity and coverage right now still is the primary
goal. Yeah.
Awesome. Anything on the? I know. I
we did just, by the way, finish another. Even as I'm saying that, we did just finish a few polished passes on the run animation.
Cool.
We're not going to stop everything animation wise and focus on polishing all the animations right now. That's we're not going to do that. But from time to time, we will single one out and
yeah, the run ones
along. Now, so and then as far as outsourcing goes, just remember you asked that. It really is a huge component to our development. We're exploring a couple of different amazing companies right now.
Themselves are.
I think the key here is really emphasizing the UI element, because that's a really important piece. Climbing is the least dependent on anything UI related that you mentioned, but on the whole, the design complete systems are waiting on implementation because they rely so heavily on UI elements to support them. And subsequently, one of the key things that we will need relatively soon is someone with solid UI and UX or user experience
UAX
expertise to help us unify all of our various UI elements, and then also contribute to the kind of the implementation plan, the functionality, the aesthetic of those remaining UI elements that these systems depend on. But there's a reason that all of these are listed as part of the alpha roadmap, because each of these systems are necessary for that complete gameplay loop experience that we need and want to be able to start alpha testing. So anything that's on that list,
yeah, necessary. The UX designer,
high priority.
We need a UX designer, necessary.
Some of those things will come first, and some of them will come last.
But I mean, they answered some pretty good questions in this stream, and this was from this actually occurred yesterday. So this was yesterday, but they talked about the animations that they definitely want to polish them, but it's really kind of on the back burner. They want to make sure they have all the animations first. They want to get all the keyframes right. They want to get all the sounds lining up with the animations, and then down the road they'll go ahead and polish those up. And they're still working on. It sounds like they're still working on quite a bit of the UI, which is interesting. I hope that's the case, because the UI right now is not the greatest UI. It's very plain. So, anyways, that's about it. There's not a whole lot more
necessary.
So I guess we can let it go. We've only got another 3 minutes,
hopefully that answers that question.
4 minutes, so we'll just let it go.
I think so. So much for the shorter stream. We'll see how that goes, kind of moving forward. But the goal is to do a little bit more shorter, digestible pieces. Listen, we're excited to talk about the game, so we're not gonna put limitations as far as timing goes. We'll just see how these things go moving forward. This year in particular, you're gonna see month to month just things just exponentially getting, more and more developed, obviously, but more and more
Still
to
seems
show.
like it still seems
And I
like
think that's important.
we'll see. I hope I'm wrong.
Guys, any
I hope I'm wrong, but it still feels like they're like 4 or 5 months out at least of putting the alpha out there. It still feels like they're a good chunk of time away from that yet. So I hope I'm wrong though.
final thoughts here? CP?
This is a heads down year. We've got a lot of milestones to hit, and you know, we talked at the beginning about some of the changes we'll be making to the stream, and some of that really comes down to protecting every ounce of time that the development team has to work and to get things done, because
Yeah.
we've
You
got
don't
really high hopes
you don't want to
for
keep
this year. We've
bugging
got
the
really high
development team.
ambitions, and
Yeah.
we're on a really, really good track. So
Yeah, what's up? Oh, that's cool. Good to see you, man. You just hopped on to say something about the UX. See you next week. All right. Yeah, that's good, man. Yeah, I don't know, like what I'm gonna be playing. Like I tried to play some retail WoW, but it's just there's so many things in retail WoW that are complete garbage that it becomes quite annoying. I'm kind of bored of playing Season Mastery just 'cause I'm tired of the grind. Tired of leveling by myself with shitty gear over and over again, even though I've only ever died once in Season of Mastery. I've got the level 46 warrior and like the 30 paladin and like a 20, I don't know, 20 hunter or 17 priest or something. But I may play some Guild Wars. I don't know. Guild Wars 2 is like, I don't know. It's a good game, but there's always something that makes me not want to continue playing Guild Wars for whatever reason. But they do have that new expansion coming out, so I might try it out. I'm just trying to find games to play to kind of, yeah. I'm just trying to find games to play or stuff to do until Pantheon comes out, because there aren't too many other games on the horizon that I'm very interested in playing. Really, there really aren't. There was a video. Let's go. There was one other video that I watched. I'm not going to I won't show it here though. But there was a video I was watching earlier today. It was talking about games that are coming, and I have no desire to play Lost Ark. I don't even understand why anybody want to play Lost Ark. I don't understand how you can play a click to move isometric game in this day and age. But people play it and they love it. So I guess there's people who are a little bit more forgiving of mechanics than me. I'm not as forgiving. I certainly don't want to be clicking on the screen to tell my avatar where to go. That's not very immersive. So that's just me. But whenever you're playing Path of Thorns Guild Wars 2, you get turned off pretty quick. Oh, really? And I tell you what, Jack, I've never even played Path of Thorns, right? I'll show you. If we go into Guild Wars 2, the highest level character I have is, I think, not even, is just starting Path of Thorns. Revelation WoW launch tomorrow. Every time I actually played on one of the Revelation WoW's like betas, whatever, Tim Tom, and it was super buggy, It was like super buggy, man. But here's Guild Wars 2. I'm level 80, I guess. What is that? That's like that's like the end of the first content. So I'm still just going through the beginning part of Path of Thorns or whatever.
Our orders haven't changed. Hold this fort at all costs. We lost the fleet, but we're not losing the Silver Wastes. Amber Sandfall is now the primary rally point for survivors. Feel the fury. The Pact is relying on us to hold this ground. Look sharp and do your jobs. Mordremoth won the first round, but this war is far from over.
Yeah, so I'm still in the I guess the starting kind of quest line to get me going. But every time I try to play Guild Wars 2, there's just something that prevents me from playing it, and I don't really know. I don't really know what it is. I don't know if it's just lack of. I think the one thing that prevents me from really getting into MMOs today, in today's world, is that I don't have any friends to play with. Like when I play MMOs, I'm always playing solo. And I hate that. I hate that I'm always playing solo. I find it very difficult to find a guild or a group of people that want to play with me that are maybe that are I don't know that are the kind of people that I enjoy playing with, I guess, for lack of a better way of explaining it. So that's always been a big problem for me, I think, in MMOs the past couple years. Even making a questing dialogue system is for a mobile game, but it's so robust I could already use it. Oh, that's cool, dude. That's cool, Dissery. That's awesome, man. You should. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm yawning. So, yeah. So I'm going to take a little break, guys. I wanted to talk about Pantheon's alpha roadmap. I thought that was a pretty good stream by Pantheon. But like I said, I do feel we're still a long ways away from getting alpha out. If we look at the Pantheon Discord, I know Milio here had posted this, and I'm guessing this is maybe his. I said your art. Oh, I said your art edit. Oh, your art. Okay, I got you. Now I'm in. The Urban Lafferty. Anyways, yeah, this is one of the art people on Pantheon. Yeah, but I still think we're like, and this is probably shouldn't even be showing that Discord. I mean, I guess it probably doesn't really matter. But anyways, no, it's not mine. Oh, Philip. Is it Philip? Are you? Is that you? I don't know. Anyways, yeah, I didn't know what you were showing. I don't. Let's see, where was it? Yeah, I looked at this art already. Some of his concept art. I'm not sure why he was linking this. A lot of sci-fi looking stuff. Yeah, Planet Side stuff. But... is it Philip? Is that you? Are you Emilio? Oh, cool. Cool, dude. Cool. You thought it was fun? Yeah, I haven't like Tim. You thought they would destroy a prop paladin? Yeah, I didn't play I didn't play. I did play one of the betas. Oh, he worked at EverQuest 2. That's what. Oh, yeah, I saw that. I saw that he had EverQuest 2 on there. I think it was. I know I saw it in here, right here at the top. See EverQuest 2. I never played Planet Side 2. I always wanted to. Shadow of the Colossus, yeah. This is pretty nice here. But hey Philip. So now that Philip's in the stream, because I bashed the shit out of Pantheon's like armor and gear that they showed in the last one of the streams, and I didn't mean to like bash. I didn't mean to like be really cruel. I just wanted to say that this is kind of not where I would go with the art style, you know. Yeah, I never played Planet. Yeah, I never played Planet Side 2. I think I did miss out. But when I was talking about the art, like if we look at the last stream, where I was kind of talking about some of the stuff that that Pantheon had done. Where is it at? So in this stream here, when they were talking about the armor and stuff, like I'm not a fan of this armor at all. In fact, I think it looks absolutely horrendous. What I was going for, I mean, what I like to see, like in an MMO, is more of like we go with something. If we're thinking about like plate armor, actually, this might not even be the best section. Let's go to. We can even just, I mean, something like this is your typical standard, like medieval armor. This. I don't know why a lot of MMOs like this is really. I really like this. Just very simple pieces of plate with obviously some leather padding, underneath. But I'm surprised that so many MMOs don't go with a more traditional, realistic looking, like even like I talked about like Ashes of Creation, which I'm not a big fan of Stephen Sharif. I think he's kind of a shyster. I've said it many times, and I don't really think that Ashes of Creations is going to really turn out to be anything that I'll probably want to play. But they also are going with armor that looks kind of similar to Pantheon's armor, and it's just, yeah, I'm not a fan. I'm a fan of Pantheon the game, but I'm not a fan of where they're going with the armor. You can see a lot of these pictures are just like warriors, female warriors. Here's kind of a nice picture of what you might envision, like if you were playing an MMO and you said your character's like level, maybe level 10 or something, or level 5 or something. And, you're not going to have a lot of the best gear. Maybe you have some plate shoulders, but you've got some leather padding, leather pieces. This is pretty realistic. Like if you look at like a squire or maybe, a servant of a knight back in medieval times, they're not going to have really good armor. But like a squire who came from like maybe a little bit of money, who's making his way up to try to become a knight, might own some decent leather gear. Not this nice, of course, but it just gives you some ideas. Like these types of traditional like medieval plate armor sets are more along the lines of what I'd like to see for like a warrior, or for like a plate set, even like this. Like something like, like this is, it's not great, but I mean, this just gives you an idea of stuff, kind of what you're looking at. I really like the design of this one. It's pretty cool, but not what I'd want to see in Pantheon. But you go from those types of things, and then you see this, and I'm like, no, I'm not really impressed. I think some of the weapons were okay. I think some of the material textures are okay. I would like to have seen a little bit more detail on the wood grain of the shafts of the weapons, but all that stuff can be modified at a later date. But I've seen, Ashes of Creation and Pantheon have these skull helmets, and I'm really not a fan. Just not a fan. Also, I didn't really like. Someone noticed in the stream last time when I was talking about this how you can actually see the chest piece flexing with his torso moving, and that's probably, if you were going for realism, that's not what you want to go for, because this looks like it's supposed to be some sort of a hammered out metal, and of course, hammered out metal wouldn't flex with his torso, because it just wouldn't have that kind of flexibility. It would be too rigid. But who knows? Maybe it's not. Maybe it's supposed to be a different type of material. But to me, Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, like, where the strength of the game is really going to be community and basically the challenging side of the content. The armor, hopefully we can get some good looking gear in the game, but that's not what's going to make or break the game for me. So yeah, I wanted to play PlanetSide. I really did. Get any? Oh, Aureus, what is this? Let me guess. This is experience gain. Just more other games. Other games that we are playing. Got some hardcore WoW. Here's the Revelation Online. So I know. No, this is a new one, Lost. This is a new one, Lost. We were talking about the Pantheon stream that they just did. That they just did it yesterday, right? So I was just covering this stream. This is the Alpha roadmap, and you can see here's Minus and Joppa and Ronick. And they did about a 50-minute video in there where they talked about the class development. The big section on the networking update which was actually pretty cool. It looks like they have made some pretty decent strides there. I never thought that Unity was like the best game engine for networking. I mean, it really hasn't been the strength of Unity, but they have updated it. I don't know if what they're using for Pantheon is really the new stuff that Unity's working on. I haven't followed Unity closely enough recently, so. Material library looked good. Didn't see anything there. I didn't really watch that part yet. Pet system I don't care about right now. Animations, Joppa had some good comments on animations. I think they were good comments. Joppa always says things that make sense. He's just got a good head and his shoulder. I really like Joppa. I like Chris Perkins. Seems like, whenever I hear him talk, like I said before, it's like I'm looking in a mirror. It feels like, the way he thinks about things and envisions them is kind of how I think. So I really like. So of course I really like him, right? Because he's just like me. Is that what he said? Morpheus, yes. But yeah, no, he seems like he's got a good head and shoulders. I think what I like about Pantheon is they're staying true to their vision. They don't have it on their website anymore. Like they had that section, like the Pantheon difference, which what really kind of separated Pantheon from other MMOs, and it really was, that challenging content, that world exploration, the community. And I don't think it's on their website anymore, but we'll have to find it. I've actually got a video I did on Pantheon where it's in that video. So if we ever want to pull it back up, we can take a look at it. But Yeah, but so here's Revelation. You got the announcement. So I know you were talking about this just a minute ago, Tim Tom, and you can begin to download the launcher here. So I grabbed it. Last time I grabbed the launcher, uh, last time I grabbed the launcher, it was pretty buggy. You know what I mean? It actually was. It was pretty buggy, and there were definitely some issues. But I mean, once it was installed, getting the game to connect correctly, and of course they were all on Christmas break and making all these excuses, which is fine. You know, people have a life, so I didn't really have a problem with it. But we'll see how it goes, Tim. I'll definitely check it out. But I think for right now, I'm going to take a little bit of a break. I really wanted to find that level designer who does those quick level design videos on Unreal Engine. I wanted to show you guys that to give you guys an idea of what a good level designer can do in a pretty short amount of time. Of course, you have to take in mind that when you're talking about someone who's working in, with like a game engine and with a team that's making an actual MMO, they have to work within the constraints of what they're trying to accomplish, and using the tools that are built for the game engine or built for the system as well. So there's all kinds of different caveats. But it was interesting when he talked about the networking stack, how he was bringing the new networking stack into the Pantheon proper, which I do believe that's probably just a programmer speak to say they're going to basically take that branch of code and merge it into the main branch of code, and it will then probably take the place of the existing Pantheon or networking stack that they were currently using up to this point, which sounded kind of. I would love to have had him explain what he meant when he said they had like a transport layer that's in there that actually helped them speed up. Because whenever I think of a transport layer, I'm thinking of like some sort of code conversion or some sort of communication layer, and those things never really speed anything up. They usually slow things down. So I would have loved to have heard his description of what he really meant there. But he said I was going to get a Unity logo tattooed. What? Oh, you mean an Unreal logo, not a Unity? I would never tattoo Unity on my body, but I would probably. I don't have any tattoos on my body because I'm old school, man. But if I did if I got a Unity, if I did a tattoo like a game tattoo, I would put Unreal on my body. I mean, you got to realize I was a die-hard Unreal Tournament gamer. I mean, I was pretty much a professional. I wasn't playing in a lot of professional tournaments. I did do a few tournaments, but I was at that level, that skill level. I was really, really good at Unreal Tournament. So, but I love that game. That's my favorite game of all time, and it will always be my favorite game of all time. So, it's just because there was just too much time I spent in that game. I mean, I used to run maps backwards. I used to get on at 2 a.m. and run all the maps that we had in clan matches. I would do two different things. I would flag carry, but I also played defense. But yeah, I would literally run all the maps backwards so that I could know them. So that when I picked up the flags and I was trying to take them back to my base to score, I could just run backwards and shoot people that were trying to trail me. And I was one of the few. I wasn't the only person who did that, but I was one of the best at doing it, at running maps backwards while shooting people that were trying to get me. You only got one tattoo, and it's from Stargate Atlantis. Stargate Atlantis. Another tattoo I almost thought about getting was the Widowmaker tattoo. I love that tattoo she's got. This one here, and you can see this is the best picture of it. I think this tattoo is really cool, with kind of like the little, almost like breaks in plaster or like webbing. But apparently, I'm not the only other person. This is another reason why I didn't want to get it, because you can see a lot of people have gotten that tattoo. But I just thought it was cool. I can't remember what it means, though. I used to know what it actually meant. But of course, I didn't get it, mostly because then I'd look like this douchebag. You know what I mean? Then I'd look like this douchebag. Yeah. Anyways, that's cool, Philip, for stopping in. I appreciate it. I am going to do some more streams. I'm going to do a lot more Pantheon stuff, once we get to the point where we can play alpha and stuff. I'll do a lot more. And as you guys know, I'll always, I'm never going to hold back my opinion. If I don't like something, I'll tell you I don't like it. I'm a software developer. I've been writing code for 25 years. I'm also like an artist. I also play guitar. I have a big, like, my whole family's artists. Like, I come from a very big art family. So, like, I'm a programmer, but I never wanted to be a programmer. Like, coming out of high school, I wanted to be in computer animation is what I wanted to do. But, I grew up with a big family. We didn't have a lot of money. And back then, since I'm like older than time itself, because I graduated high school in '88, We didn't really have a lot of like state schools that really had those types of programs, so I didn't really have the opportunities that people have today, which sucks. But whatever, I'll be reincarnated, and I'm gonna come back and knock it out of the park. I'm just kidding, but the wheel of time turns, right? But Alpha, I still think, hey, isn't hey Philip's in here? Hey Philip, tell us when Alpha's coming out. I think Philip said he was what's his name? One of the artists for Pantheon, if I understood him correctly. But yeah, I think it's gonna come out in about 4 or 5 months. That's my guess. That's my guess. Yeah, I mean, I always wanted to be like, yeah, I mean, I always wanted. There was definitely part of me that wanted to go do art. My brother's a phenomenal artist. Well, he passed away, but my brother was an absolutely phenomenal artist. Fantastic artist. And my mother was a painter. My sister's a really good artist, and she's actually run her own company for years, doing her own art. And yeah, my grandmother was a painter. And my grandmother's grandmother was a painter. My brother's a photographer. My whole family's pretty much artists. But but yeah, I think I think I think Pantheon has a chance to be a really interesting game. I think the people behind it, and we'll see what happens. So sounds like I'm kind of losing my voice a little bit today, guys. But I really wanted to find this. I can't remember his name, and I should remember his name. That was this really good speed level designer of Unreal. Now, if you guys have ever watched Dev Addict's actually really fun. If you want to watch a fun guy, streamer, I love this guy, the Dev Addict. He goes over some really cool stuff, and he's got a good gift for explaining things in a way that you can understand, and which is tough for a lot of people to really watch videos on stuff like creating levels in a game engine or talking about programming concepts. But this guy he's got a really good way for explaining it. You can see I actually responded here, and of course he will respond. He's you can get on his Discord. I don't know if I'm on his Discord still. I think I am. I think I am. Am I? Yeah, right here's his Discord. See his latest stuff, but he's a really cool guy. I've never played PlanetSide. That's the thing, it's really funny. My friend was a professional. He was on a pro Counter-Strike team, and he tried to get me to come back after about 2 or 3 years of not playing FPS games. He tried to get me to come back and play on Counter-Strike with him because he knew he used to come watch me play Unreal Tournament. And the first time he ever saw me play Unreal Tournament, his jaw just hit the floor. He's like, you're like a god. He's like, I can't believe you're this good, because yeah, that was what it was like when you watched me play. Like me and my brother used to play a lot of games together. We smashed Angry Joe on PS2. You have a love-hate relationship with C#? I mean, yeah. I mean, C#. I write C# code every day, so I mean, C# is the primary language I use right now. I write mostly C#, web services, and JavaScript. HTML, JavaScript. C#. And web services. A lot of .NET stuff. We're trying to upgrade. We're trying to migrate to some .NET Core stuff, but and starting to get into more multi-thread programming and parallel programming, which is really cool. I haven't done a lot of that in the past, and we're starting to do more of that. But since I'm working on mostly a financial application, a lot of times those types of things those programming practices aren't as needed. But we are starting to get more into that, and which is cool. My goal when I retire is to really make my own game, and it may not be a game that'll ever come out, but I definitely want to create the world, like an MMO world, and I look at it, as I said before, I look at it as writing like a fantasy novel. I mean, I think the best MMOs, are going to come from really having that kind of background. You need to have that lore. You need to have so much lore that you could just be a book. You could just put it into a book and say, go read this book, and it's going to tell you all about the characters and the cities and the world and the history of the races and why one race might like one other race, and what's the economy, what's the politics, all those different types of things. In fact, I've got a great list of, I've got a great list of of like questions you should ask when designing an MMO. It's actually a really good list. I don't know if I have it in my Artisy draft here. Oops.
And Quixel, we're gonna be.
I don't think I do. There are no single. What? RDC's pissing me off sometimes. Oh, it's just because of the license. The license on RDC Drafts is a funky thing. It's a funky thing. It likes to say that it's not licensed, but it is. And I have to add the damn license, not the key in there all the time. Let me go to my Google Drive really quick. Google Drive. Find this. We go to Vanguard MMO. No, let's not go to Vanguard. I wish I had. I know it's in there too. I know it's in my RDC Draft project, but I'd have to pull up the key. Ooh, do I have the key? Ah, I'll do it some other time and show you guys. But it's a really cool list of that somebody compiled of kind of like questions you need to ask when designing like an MMO, and I liked it because it was so detailed. And I mean, it was like 60 different questions, and it really went down the rabbit hole, which I thought was fantastic. And and I was talking about how I'd had the Return of the King book that I bought, like an old copy, an old edition of the Return of the King at like a flea market or something somewhere when I was up in Tennessee. And what I loved about that edition of the Return of the King was in the glossary section or in the section in the back, it outlined all the phonetics of like the language that J.R.R. Tolkien was trying to create, all the phonetic symbols, and it talked about all the different like hobbits and like their family trees, and it had all these different maps. It had so much information, and I think that's why one of the reasons why Lord of the Rings was so good was because J.R.R. Tolkien developed this extremely in-depth world. And to me, if you're making an MMO, that's what you need to do. You need to develop this very descriptive, in-depth history of the world, of the languages, of the people. And that stuff most MMOs just don't do that. Most MMOs don't take the time to do that. But yeah, when I retire, and hopefully I'll be retired, 2022, I'm hoping to retire in about, I guess, 15 years from now. See, what am I, 51? Yeah, I'm thinking I'll probably retire in about 15 years. It's going to be really interesting to see what it's like in 2037, I guess that would be, where games are going to be at. But my goal for my retirement is really just to do more art and to continue working on my own project. And maybe it'll just turn out to be like a fantasy novel. But, that I definitely was going to be doing a lot of game development when I'm retired. I can't do the game development now because I write code all day long, and I've tried so hard to come home and work on a game, but the problem is my wife kills me. She's like, my wife's not going to let me get away with it. It's like, and plus it's tough when you write code all day to come home and write more code and learn more things, and it's just difficult. So I resign myself to playing some games or doing some streams or playing my guitar. Maybe drawing some pictures, drawing some forests and stuff and things of that nature. But C# harp is spirit because you can put methods inside methods. C# is very similar to Java. Yeah, I mean, it's extremely similar to Java, but it's a very, very good language. And it's gotten a lot better ever since they went open source with C#. There's been a lot of good improvements. So, well, I probably would. I kind of got on a tangent there, like I always do. But what I was trying to say was that I was like a phenomenally good FPS player back in 2000. I was one of the best players in Unreal Tournament. Like when I went to any server, people knew me, and they just were like, oh, when I showed up, they knew they were going to lose. Basically, they always knew they were going to lose. Like I played Capture the Flag mostly, and I usually played 135-35 speed, which is 135 speed, game speed, 35 air control, or I played 155-55 Instagib, which is 155 game speed and 55 air control. But when I went into those game modes, there were specific servers that hosted those particular modes that were popular with all the best clans. And usually when I showed up on those servers, the team I was on, they pretty much always won. I mean, I'd lose once in a while. I might play like 4 or 5 hours a day, or maybe, they're basically between the years of like 1999 and like 2002. I played Unreal Tournament like 8 hours a day, almost every day I did it for almost 3 years straight. I had just gotten divorced and I had nothing else better to do. And I would basically get up in the morning and I would play Unreal Tournament for an hour. I'd go to work, but my office was across the street. So I'd take a shower, walk across the street, write code until noon, come home, play Unreal Tournament for an hour from 12 to 1, go back to work, write code from like 1 to 5, go home, eat dinner, relax for maybe an hour, and then from like maybe 7 until about midnight or 7 until about 1 a.m. play Unreal Tournament. So what's that? That's like what, 5 hours there, 6. So that's like 7 hours right there. And I would do that like pretty much almost every day. There'd be like a couple days a week, or maybe I'd go out to the pub, drink some beers or something. But I put in a serious amount of game time, and that's why I was so good. I was ridiculously good in Unreal Tournament, and but I'm not good anymore. That's the thing. I quit playing FPS games in 2000, around 2005, 2006. I pretty much quit FPS, and and if you don't play FPS for like 2 or 3 years and you try to come back, it's tough. It's really tough. My only time I tried to come back a little bit because my friend wanted me to join his Counter Strike team, or because he knew how good I was, and he's like, well, if I could get you, playing Counter Strike, because I'd never even played Counter Strike, and he had me go into Counter Strike when I was good at Unreal, and it's different type of games. I mean, they're totally different types of games. But I would go in there and we just both have like a pistol and stand, across the way from each other and duel it out, and I would pretty much always win. And he was always like, "How can you beat me? I'm on a professional Counter Strike team, and you can come in here never playing Counter Strike and beat me." And I'm like, "Well, aiming the cursor is aiming the cursor. I just had really good aim, but then after 2 or 3 years not playing, and I tried to play, and then he beat me, because it's just you lose it. You don't use it, you lose it, man. So you get all the same books, got all three plus The Hobbit. Yeah, I've got lots of books. I've been trying to read some books by Brandon Sanderson. Yeah, I've been reading the Mistborn book, which is actually a really good book. But you guys, if you were watching the WoW leak that Asmongold was talking about yesterday, definitely read Rhapsody, man. You guys have got if you like fantasy novels, make sure you grab Rhapsody by Elizabeth Hayden, because I really feel like this book, like a lot of the stuff that they were talking about, and actually this artwork here is by Luis Royo, if you guys know Luis. This book here, Prophecy, that's Prophecy. The first one is Rhapsody, which is this one here. Super good, super great book. Really good book. Definitely grab that if you are interested in, kind of some interesting story that's similar to what that WoW 10.0 like next expansion leak talked about. Talking about like the soul of the planet, and how the planet is Azeroth, and how they're trying to teach Azeroth how to heal the world, and how there's like these dragon aspects and all kinds of interesting stuff. Yeah, interesting stuff. One of my favorite parts about the book Rhapsody, they literally climb through the earth. They actually climb. At one point, it's weird, man. They go, and you see in a lot of like fantasy books, there's like Teldrassil, right? Teldrassil, or the world tree or whatever. In Rhapsody also has like the idea of the one world tree, but she actually goes through. She actually goes into the planet and is crawling along the roots of basically the world tree, and finds her sword, which is this flaming sword in the earth. But she was like, it's just a really really good book, and I haven't even read anything past the first book, but definitely check that out if you guys are into fantasy. But I really want to do a video on some Unreal stuff, some level design. I think this Victor guy's done quite a few of these videos. Most of the videos now are pretty much Unreal 4, so it's going to be interesting to see some more, level designs that are being knocked out with Unreal Engine 5. I don't know. This guy doesn't impress me as much. I've got to find the guy that I used to watch all the time, but I can't remember his name. I should be subscribed to him, and I'm not seeing. Now, Saiku actually has some decent ones. If you guys are interested in Unreal Engine level designs, I like Saiku. He's a pretty cool guy. He does some pretty good level designs. Some pretty good videos on just Unreal Engine. I've actually watched this one before, and you can see it. Pretty decent, pretty nice level. I like the way he did the water here. I liked how he's got the different pieces of rocks kind of sparsely put out, and the lighting here of the water is a little bit different too, and a little bit interesting. And you can even see the color of the trees, and the color overall of this lighting is very similar to kind of the lighting we saw on the Pantheon screenshots of the levels they're doing. But a lot of this stuff, it just depends on the lighting that's in the scene, and that's why this one doesn't look super like vibrant. I'm not sure if I'm familiar with this guy. Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, and this is that's terrible. That's just straight up not very good. Pietro. But yeah, I mean, this is what I do. I mean, I spend a lot of time looking at lots of different things. I'm very into game design. I'm very into art. And I took a class at the Art Institute of Chicago in game animation, or in it was called Intro to 3D Animation, and it was a class I took at the Art Institute of Chicago, and it was taught by Joshua Mosley, and it was a pretty cool class. I mean, I was his best student because, well, he told me I was his best student, but when he went on a trip one time, he had me teach the class. He had me lead the class because I was the person who picked up the software the fastest, and you know, but I loved it. I immersed myself in it, and I spent hours and hours and hours working on projects, and it was really cool. And I think I still have. Let me see. I think I still have this one thing that I worked on in the project. I don't know if I can find it really quickly for you guys. Let's see if I can. Because it was pretty neat. Library. Be on my old computer, old PC. 2D, 3D. I don't see it here. Yeah. Oh, there. Okay. I thought I had it. I thought I had it. So this was actually when I was in the class. This was actually pretty cool. So close this down. So like the teacher was like going around the class and he was giving people like stuff to do, stuff to create. And keep in mind, this was my first time really doing any kind of 3D like modeling or stuff, right? And he was giving people stuff like he goes up to some girl and goes, "Here's a coffee cup, model this." And we were using Strata Studio Pro, which is a 3D program, right? He's like, "I want you to model this coffee cup," right? And he's going around giving people things. He gives someone else like I don't know, like some sort of maybe a computer mouse, like a mouse. Here's a mouse. Then he comes to me and he gives me this. He literally gives me this freaking ringer, like this is old fashioned, bell with the hammer, like this is something that you might have on your doorbell, like might be a doorbell that's triggered when someone presses the button and the current. And this is what I did. I created this in a 3D program, Strata Studio Pro. I'm very proud of what I did here because this was like one of the first things I ever really modeled in a 3D program, right? And I had to go through it. I mean, I was using it wasn't really Boolean intersection. I was using what was called stenciling, where you basically take I was using Adobe, and I was very proficient with Adobe Illustrator and Adobe Photoshop. So I was using Adobe Illustrator to create like stencils, which are basically like kind of like a real stencil to cut through metal. So I was using those to make these holes, these different cuts in the metal, and stuff like that. But I came up with all these really textures by actually taking pictures of real objects in the real world and then creating textures out of those. But you can see, obviously this was not the finished piece, but I was really proud of how I came out with the rubber wires too, and like how I kind of like had, lathed these out, and even just like how I bent the metal. See like the little golden piece, of the golden like flat piece of metal here, how I kind of bent it out, and it came out pretty damn good. And actually, these black pieces were actually they're almost what you see in guitar pickups, where it's like a black sort of material that's like foam, like a black foam or something. Oh, what is this? What is this crazy weird person? We're getting some crazy people in the chat, guys. First, we got the bot. We got the Russian bot that comes to my chat all the time. And he said Bailey J has a better chance of becoming a biological woman than Pantheon seeing a commercial release. Well, I can tell you right now that Pantheon will see a commercial release. So, yeah, I don't know who the hell Bailey J is. But yeah, Pantheon will see a release. But this was one of the first 3D things I ever did, and I was very proud of kind of some of the basically concepts that I learned. How to create these different types of shapes, and stenciling, and then even the textures. It was a really fun fun thing. What is this? Oh, this is ArcAge. Yeah, some old stuff. This is what World of Warcraft. This is when World of Warcraft actually had Dark Night. This is like back in beta. This is what it looked like in beta World of Warcraft when the sun went down. It was that dark. They changed, they of course they eventually pulled that out of the game. A lot of MMOs don't have a good dark night times, as part of like the day night cycle. Like even Black Desert Online, when it first came out, at nighttime got so dark that you used to have lanterns that you would carry around with you, and you would literally equip a lantern so you could fight mobs out in the forest because it was too dark. You couldn't see anything. And I love that. I love that. I don't know if Pantheon's going to do a really, really dark thing, but dark nights. But I think that's just more realistic. I also like the fact that Pantheon made monsters and creatures more dangerous at night because it also kind of gives you that sense of danger. That if you're going to go out and explore the roads at nighttime, the chances of getting attacked by orc raiders or whatever should be higher. The chance of having encounters should be more difficult because we always think of it. You always think of it. Go back to Dungeons and Dragons. In Dungeons and Dragons, it's the same thing. Like whenever I was playing D&D, and the game master, the dungeon master, would always have a greater chance of having encounters at nighttime than during the day, just because it makes perfect sense. If somebody's gonna rob you, they're gonna do it at night, not during the middle of the day, right? So I always thought that was kind of neat. You tried to use Blender to create models. I actually, yeah, I did. I've done some Blender. I actually was doing. What did I do? Do I have it? Oh, from data. The last thing I did in Blender was this low poly tree. I was doing some, I was just playing around with, trying to create some low poly trees. I thought maybe it would be a fun exercise to create like a couple computer scenes, just a couple like levels using low poly, just as a good exercise to get used to, the tools, to get used to, using Blender and using getting the textures the way I want them. And so that was something I had done, and I really liked it. I thought it was a really fun, a fun project that I did. This was a while ago when I made this little low poly tree, but I had a lot of fun doing it and just getting used to, the shaders and stuff, and playing around with Blender's shader engine was something that I definitely enjoyed. And Blender is so much like the newest version of Blender's so much easier to learn than the original version that I played on. And my favorite YouTube, one of my favorite YouTubers, if you guys don't know him, you definitely, if you're interested in 3D, if you're interested in 3D, what else do I have? Anything else that I did? Low poly character? I don't think. Yeah, I was gonna start. This was gonna be my character sheet, character reference sheet. Didn't I get? I don't think I had done a couple parts where I did a low poly character and I actually got some stuff done on it, but then I ended up not like deleting it, I think. Oh, here we go. Okay, so like here you can see where I was trying to I was using the character reference sheet to do a little bit of you know, modeling, basically character modeling with the kind of the point reference method. So this is one of the ways where you can basically model out a face using it based off of your reference sheet. This is not sculpting, of course, and the more common way that people are going to be doing character design today is is sculpting. And if you want to look at sculpting, and this is an older way of doing it, an older method of doing it. But I like to at the time I like to learn like the older concepts because I think it makes you better. But um, so that was something I was working on, and then if you look at like sculpting though, I really like Yan can sculpt. I think he's really good. I think it's Yan can sculpt. Yeah, Yan sculpt. So this guy, I love this guy. I actually think the latest one he did was he did Jinx. He did this character from the TV show. Remember the TV show? I think it's called Arcane, the League of Legends animated TV show. I think it's on Netflix, maybe. Um, this guy's really good, and he makes everything look so easy. But he's a sculptor. And he just makes it look so easy. Let me show you one of his videos he does where he starts it. He does one really quick. Here he sculpted a character in 5 minutes. Just it blows your mind. Like this thing he could just sculpt out a character literally in 5 minutes. And so here's a character this guy made in 5 minutes. I mean, it's insane, right? 5 minutes. But this guy, this is what he does. I mean, he sculpts all the time. But I mean, I think this is another thing that, coming out of high school back in 1988, this was something I wanted to do. I wanted to do like, animation or character creation. This is the job I wanted to have. I always thought it would have been super fun and super cool to create, create characters and do that kind of thing, modeling and stuff. And but the way the tools today are so much better now, and the development tools, so it's really cool. It's going to be really interesting to see where we end up. Like I said, by the time I retire in 15 years from now, which is going to be 2037, it's going to be really cool to see where things are, and how things are, how things are going to turn out. So, what other stuff do I have in here? Cloud? I don't know. Add-ons, character models. I don't know if there's any other fun stuff to look at. Yeah. Anyways, guys, that's it for this stream. I've gone on all kinds of tangents, which I always do. Thanks for coming by and watch me blab, because I'm good at it. And but I do want to grow the channel more this year, and I do want to start using my webcam, or probably some, and so you guys can see the crazy person behind the keyboard here. I don't know what I've kind of, like I said, I've gotten kind of tired of playing World of Warcraft. I'm just burned out, like kind of like Nissi was saying, I'm kind of burned out on MMOs, but it's just because I've played them all, and we all want a new MMO to play, and we're all dying for that new, really good MMO to sink our teeth into, and there just isn't one out there right now, which just really makes me sad, So yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, if you look at the Unreal Engine VR too, I mean, there's people that are doing VR modeling, so. Like, pretty sure I thought I saw one where someone was doing there's architectural design, but that doesn't really impress me too much, because it's basically the same thing as not doing VR architectural design, but modeling VR would be kind of neat. Free character creator. I think didn't I do a video on this? No, this is a different one. Oh, I did it on my other channel. I did it on my other YouTube channel. So if you go here, I did this one. I did a video on my other channel, the Unreal Engine MetaHuman Character Creator. So we went through and played around with their MetaHuman Creator, which is pretty cool and pretty easy to use. And then we ended up getting this this character created with the MetaHuman Creator, and then loaded into the actual loaded into a scene in Unreal Engine. So yeah, I've got another YouTube channel that I haven't done a whole lot with. But the whole design of this channel is that the video game that I want to make, the MMO I would like to make, is going to be called The World of Vosslar. That would be the name of it. I probably should freaking copyright that before somebody steals it. No one's gonna steal it. No one would There's no such thing. Like, if you search Vosslar, right? If you even search it on the web, the first thing you get is my YouTube. You get my Twitter account, my YouTube, and that's about it. You don't find a whole lot of stuff, which is good. If you're gonna come up with a name for a game, you want something that people don't haven't really used, right? So that was a good name that I came up with. Now that I'm putting it on the stream, someone's gonna probably try to steal it. You bastards! I'll kill you. I'll come to your house and shoot you. I'm just kidding. I might shoot you. I'll bring my sword. Yeah. Anyway, whatever. So, but yeah, it's something when I retire, something I'd like to do. So, anyways, thanks for stopping by, guys. We'll go to the Discord, and let's see. There's Nissery. Oh, you got Game of Thrones. What is this, Nissery? Is this like the tattoo you want to get? Like a little tattoo like that? Nice. Yeah, no problem, Jackrabbit. You look forward to catching you next stream. You'd never take that name and make it. Yeah, I've got some stuff. I mean, I've got some character races already created for my game, and I've got some background. I've got a few village or a few town city names created, but it's one of those things that I always want to spend more time on. Um, but my wife's been really sick the last. She's been to surgery. She was in surgery a couple days ago, and she actually had a heart attack about on the 23rd. So thank God she's doing much better now, and she comes home tomorrow. Actually, I've got to go pick her up tomorrow. So because of my wife not being, having some problems, I've been trying to spend more time, helping her, and so. But yeah, I mean, our goal would be to retire to Tennessee, in 15 or 16 years, and hopefully over the next 15 years, I can continue to add, stuff for my video game, and like I said, I treat it as like almost like I'm writing a fantasy book, and maybe if I don't ever even make a game, at least I'll have enough information that maybe I will either make a book out of it, or I'll sell it to somebody to use as information for their game, or something. But who knows? I mean, who knows? And we don't know what the world's going to be like in 15 years. I mean, think how technologically advanced things have become now. It's going to be really interesting to see how things are, in 15 years from now. So, all right, with that, I leave you. Yes, Morpheus. Yes, we're going to leave the stream and drink some Coca-Cola. Yes. Right. A little bit of Ion music here. I will catch you guys later. Peace out.